Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a small house at the edge of a city. The walls are thin. The roof is made of tin. Outside, a dog barks on a dirt road. The night is hot and still. Inside, a little boy is sleeping. He is curled up on his side. In his arms, he holds a ball. It is not a toy. It is a real leather football. He holds it the way other children hold something they love, close against his chest, as if it might run away in the night. This boy has almost nothing. His family is poor. There is often not enough food. But he has this ball. To him, the ball is everything. His name is Diego. One day, 2 billion people will watch him play. A whole city across the ocean will paint his face on their walls. They will call him a god. But here is the strange part. The boy in this little house never really left. Through all the fame and all the noise, through the money and the madness, somewhere inside, he was always that child, still holding the ball, afraid to let go. This is a story of wonder. It is also a story of pain. One small boy would carry a whole country on his shoulders. The world wanted Maradona, the legend. But Diego only ever wanted to play. So tonight, let us go back. Back to the dirt road. Back to the boy and his ball. This is the story of Maradona. Let us begin in a place called Villa Fiorito. It sits on the southern edge of Buenos Aires, that is, the capital of Argentina. In the 1960s, Villa Fiorito was a shanty town. People called it a villa. It was a place the big city tried not to see. The streets were not paved. There was no clean water. When it rained, the dirt roads turned to mud. Diego Armando Maradona was born here. It was a cold day in October 1960. He was the 5th of 8 children. His father worked hard in a factory. His mother held the whole family together. There was love in that house, but there was hunger too. Diego remembered one thing his whole life. When food was short, his mother would say her stomach hurt. She did it so her children could eat her share. It was a lie. A gentle, painful lie he never forgot. This was the world that made him. A world of hunger, hard work, and love. Then came the gift that changed everything. On his 3rd birthday, a cousin gave him a leather ball. Little Diego held it like treasure. That first night, he fell asleep with it in his arms. The ball became his voice. It became his joy and his escape. Other children dreamed of toys, but Diego dreamed of stadiums. He dreamed of roaring crowds. He dreamed of lifting something golden into the sky. The neighbors gave him a nickname. They called him Pelusa. It means fuzz because of his thick, messy hair. Yet there was nothing soft about the way he played. Barely 10 years old, he joined a youth team. They were called Los Cebollitas, the little onions. Here is something that sounds like a legend, but it is true. The coaches watched this tiny boy with the ball. They could not believe their eyes. They asked to see his identity card. They thought he was lying about his age. No child, they thought, could move like this. He was real. He was just small and touched by something rare. With the little onions, Diego went on an amazing run. 140 games, not a single loss. At halftime in the big matches, the crowds stayed in their seats. They stayed for one reason. They wanted to watch the boy juggle the ball. Can you imagine that? A whole stadium, quiet and still, just to watch a child play. Slowly, people began to whisper a powerful thing. They said this boy would save Argentine football. They said he was the one they had waited for. He was barely a teenager. Already, a country was placing its hopes on him. But the first great test of his life would not be a victory. It would be a wound. The year was 1978, and something huge was about to happen in Argentina. The country was hosting the World Cup. It is the biggest football tournament on Earth. This time it was happening at home, on Argentine soil. For Diego, this was the dream of dreams. He was 17 now. He had already played for the national team. He believed with all his heart that he would be chosen. He even made the early list. He was in the group of players still in the running. He was so close he could almost touch it. Then the coach made his final choice. The coach was named Cesar Menotti. Menotti decided that Diego was too young and too small, not ready for the weight of a whole nation. So he cut him from the final team. A journalist was there that cold evening. He was leaving the training base in the dark. He heard someone crying. It was Diego, sitting alone by a tree, weeping his heart out. The journalist tried to comfort him. He said the boy would play in many World Cups. But Diego could only think of one thing. He kept asking, "How do I tell my father?" Can you picture that? A 17-year-old boy, alone in the dark, crying not for himself, but for his dad. Then his country won the World Cup without him. The whole nation poured into the streets. They danced and cried with joy. Confetti rained from the sky. Diego watched it all from the outside. Years later, he wrote about that night. He said this was the moment he learned something. He learned that anger could be a fuel. So he took the pain. He turned it into fire. He would never be left out again. He would make himself impossible to ignore. He kept his promise. 1 year later, he led Argentina's young team to a World Youth title. He was named the best player of the tournament. The boy was becoming a force. After the youth title, Diego joined the biggest clubs in Argentina. The pressure on him grew and grew. A whole country wanted him to be perfect. In 1982, he finally played in a World Cup. It was in Spain. He was a grown man this time. Yet it did not go the way the fairy tale should. Opponents kicked him and provoked him. They tried to stop his magic with their fists. Diego, full of fire, fought back. In one painful match against Brazil, he lost control. He kicked an opponent in anger. The referee sent him off the field. His country watched their golden boy walk away in shame. This was the other side of Diego. There was the temper, the pride, the refusal to bow. He was a genius. Was he also a saint? He was not, and he never pretended to be. That is exactly why people loved him. Then, in 1984, came a phone call that would change history. A football club in the south of Italy wanted him. It was a poor club. It was a struggling club. It had never won the Italian league in its life. The club was Napoli. So what made this moment so special? You need to understand Italy. For a very long time, Italy has been split in two. There is the rich, proud north. There is the poorer, struggling south. The north often looked down on the south. They mocked it and called it backward and dirty. Naples sat right in the heart of that south. It was a city of narrow streets and washing lines. It was a city of noise and faith and hard luck. For a long time, the rest of the country seemed to forget it. So when Maradona arrived, was it just a transfer? No. It was a miracle. 75,000 people packed into the stadium. They came just to see him hold up a shirt. They came just to see his face. Why so many? Because they saw themselves in him. He was a poor boy from a slum. He was small, and he had been looked down on. He was an underdog with the whole world against him. He was them. Diego felt it too. He understood these people in his bones. He was one of them. So he gave them everything he had. What is coming next is a love story like no other in football. A wounded city and a wounded genius. A few short years when, together, they made the impossible come true. In the spring of 1987, the impossible happened. Napoli won the Italian league. It was the first time in the club's history. The very first time. The city did not sleep that night. People wept in the streets. They lit fireworks until dawn. They painted his face on the walls of their buildings. The poor South had beaten the rich North. A boy from a Buenos Aires slum had led the charge. He gave them a second league title in 1990. He gave them trophies they had only dreamed of. Still, the trophies were never really the point. He gave them their pride back. To this day, his face still covers the walls of Naples. People paint him as a saint, as an angel. Some paint him as a god, watching the streets he once ruled. Why does a city love a man this much? He did not just win matches for them. He made the forgotten feel seen. But before that second title, the whole world learned who Diego was. It happened in Mexico in the summer of 1986 at the World Cup. Argentina fought their way to the quarter-final. The team waiting for them was England. Now, this was never going to be just a football match. Only 4 years earlier, the two countries had gone to war. It was a short, brutal war over some small islands. Hundreds of young Argentine soldiers had died there. So when these two nations met, the air was thick with pain. The match had been tense for almost an hour. Argentina and England were still locked together. Every pass felt heavy. Every mistake felt dangerous. Then came 4 minutes that would follow football forever. One man would score twice. The first goal would divide the world. The second would unite it. The ball floated high above the English penalty box. Diego chased after it instinctively. So did England goalkeeper Peter Shilton. But Shilton was much taller, much stronger. There was no realistic way Diego could beat him in the air. And yet, somehow, the ball dropped into the net. For a second, nobody understood what had happened. Then the English players exploded with anger. Diego had punched the ball with his left hand. It was clear. It was deliberate. It was cheating. But the referee never saw it. The goal stood. Argentina celebrated wildly, while England surrounded the referee in disbelief. Years later, Diego gave his famous explanation. "A little with the head of Maradona," he said, "and a little with the hand of God." The English never forgave it. Many Argentines never apologized for it either. To some, it was scandalous. To others, it felt like revenge after the Falklands War. And before the anger in the stadium had even settled, Diego did something stranger still. He scored a goal so beautiful that people almost forgot the first one. Goal of the century. Only 4 minutes had passed. Diego received the ball deep inside Argentina's half. More than half the field still stretched in front of him. At first, nothing looked unusual. One touch, then another. He turned away from the first English player effortlessly. Then he slipped past a second. Now the crowd was beginning to rise. Diego kept running. A third defender lunged toward him and missed completely. Then came a fourth. The ball stayed close to his feet, as if it belonged there. The stadium noise was growing into a roar now. Only the goalkeeper remained. Diego moved slightly to the left. The keeper collapsed. And with one soft touch, he rolled the ball into the empty net. Then, the stadium exploded. 5 English players beaten, nearly 60 meters covered. Just a few seconds that somehow felt outside of time. Years later, FIFA asked fans to vote. Which was the greatest goal in World Cup history? This one won. They called it the goal of the century. And the strangest part was this. The greatest goal ever scored came only minutes later. Minutes after one of football's ugliest acts of cheating. Both goals belonged to the same man. That man was Diego Maradona. Think about that. In just 4 minutes, one man showed us both halves of his soul, the trickster and the genius, the sinner and the saint. That was Diego. He was never only one thing. He could never be only one thing. Argentina went on to win the whole tournament. People still call it Maradona's World Cup. One man, almost alone, had carried a nation to the top. He had climbed as high as a human being can climb. From the very top, there is only one way left to go. The fall did not arrive all at once. It came slowly and quietly. It came like a shadow growing longer at the end of the day. In Naples, away from the cameras, a darkness had crept into his life. He was the most famous man in the city, maybe in the world. Can you imagine carrying all of that? There was no quiet. There was no normal day. There was no simple moment to just be Diego. He found a false escape in cocaine. It is a drug that promises everything and steals it all back. He also drifted close to dangerous people. He moved near the powerful crime families of the city. The higher he climbed, the more lost he became. When did the joy become a trap? It is hard to know, yet it did. Here is the deepest sadness of his story, my friend. The world wanted Maradona, the god, but the god was too big for one man to live inside. Diego had become famous too young. He had been called a savior too young. Slowly, he was swallowed by his own legend. He no longer knew how to live like an ordinary person. Maybe he never really learned how. In 1991, he failed a drug test. He was banned from football for over a year. The city that had crowned him a god now turned cold. He went home to Argentina. He tried, again and again, to find his way back. In 1994, there was one last flicker of the old magic. He had lost weight. He looked sharp again. Argentina called him to play in another World Cup. He wore the captain's armband one more time. Against Greece, the world saw the old Diego for one shining moment. A string of quick passes found his left foot. One touch to settle the ball. One touch to push it clear. Then he lashed it into the very top corner. It was a beautiful goal. Surrounded by defenders, he still had all the old genius. But it is what came next that no one can forget. He ran straight toward the television camera. His arms were stretched wide. His eyes were wild and wide open. He screamed right into the lens. It became one of the most haunting images in football. People even gave it a name. They called it the Scream. A few days later, he failed another drug test. He was thrown out of the tournament in front of the whole world. That goal against Greece would be his last for his country. A 17-year journey ended in shame. The world had seen Diego at his highest. Now it watched him come apart in public. He retired from football a few years later. He wept as he said goodbye. He was leaving the only thing he had ever truly loved. Yet the body remembers what we do to it. The years that followed were hard and cruel. There were heart problems. There were long stays in hospitals. There were nights when the world feared he would not wake up. The boy who once seemed too fast to catch could not outrun himself. How does a story like this end? Here is the part that stays with me, even now. Through all of it, the people never left him. In Argentina and in Naples, they still loved him. In poor neighborhoods all over the world, they still loved him. Not because he was perfect. They loved him because he was not. He once said something simple and honest. He said he was black or white. He would never be gray. He gave the world more joy than his own body could hold. On a November day in the year 2020, Diego Maradona died. His heart finally gave out. He was 60 years old. Argentina stopped. The president declared 3 days of mourning. People filled the streets of Buenos Aires. They cried as if they had lost their own family. Far across the ocean, in Naples, the candles came out once more, the murals filled with flowers. A whole city wept for a man who had left them long ago. He had given them too much to ever forget. But the people did not cry because a legend had died. They cried because Diego never felt far away. He was messy and emotional. He was proud and broken and gloriously human. He was one of them. He always would be. We have come a long way tonight. We started in a small house on a dirt road. We traveled through the roaring stadiums of the world. Now we stand at a quiet, painful goodbye. Still, the story of Maradona was never really about football. It was about a boy who had almost nothing, a boy who decided that one ball was enough to dream with. It was about the magic that lives inside the people the world forgets, the ones in the tin houses, the ones at the back of the line, the small ones, the overlooked ones. He showed us that the smallest among us can rise the highest. He showed us something harder, too. One person can hold both wonder and ruin in the same hands. My friend, maybe there is something here for you, too. We all carry light and shadow inside us. Have you felt that, too? There are parts we are proud of. There are parts we try to hide. None of us is only one thing. Maybe that is all right. You do not have to be perfect to be loved. You do not have to win to matter. Sometimes the people who feel most broken give the most joy. Remember the little boy. Remember him asleep with a ball in his arms. He held the one thing he loved. He held it like it was the start of everything. It was. So hold the small thing in your hands right now. Hold it the way that boy held his ball. You never know what it might become. Thank you for staying with me tonight. Of all the stories I tell, this one stays with me. Before you go, I would love to hear from you. Of all the moments in his life, which one moved you the most? Was it the hungry boy with the ball? Was it the lonely teenager crying by the tree? Or was it the city that made him a god? Leave a comment and tell me. And next time, my friend, we open the door on another story. A small, quiet thing you have held 100 times. A humble beginning in a faraway place. A long journey across the world to reach your hands. Its story is waiting for us. Until then, take care of yourself. I will be here when you return.